Welcome to Shaping a Greener Tomorrow, the podcast that dives into the challenges and opportunities shaping the future of the built environment within the UK. I'm Paul Terry, Managing Director at UPOWA and your host. We're here to uncover practical solutions, share success stories and offer insights to help navigate the evolving landscape of house building and construction within the UK. In today's episode, we're exploring how the Future Homes Standard and the solar mandate are reshaping house building and what it takes to move beyond policy and compliance to build homes that are fit for the future. Joining me is Chris Gaze, Associate at the Future Homes Hub, an organisation guiding the industry's transitions to the Future Home Standard. The Hub works across the government and the supply chain to help house builders and innovators turn policy into practical delivery. Chris, it's fantastic to have you with us here at the UPOWA podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Really appreciative. It's good to see you. So to start us off, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about the Future Homes Hub? So what it is, what it does, and how it's helping the house building industry move towards a net zero future.
We are a member organisation for house builders and for their supply chain. So UPOWA are a member. Yes. So thank you for joining.
You're welcome.
And we exist really to work with government. So government sits on our board as well, and often sits in lots of our meetings. So to work with government, to collaborate with government in the delivery of their policy in what I normally describe as the most practical and pragmatic way that we can. And so we work across the whole range of environmental issues. So because of the title, we're very strongly associated with the Future Home Standard, and I know we'll talk a bit more about that later. But we are also doing an awful lot of work with regards to water efficiency, SUDS, drought. There's a full range of water topics there. We've done a report called Water Ready, which has gone to help inform some of the thinking behind the new Part G consultation for water. We're also doing a lot of work with biodiversity net gain, and particularly in terms of signposting where to go to get help with those sorts of issues, because it's a brand new world and it's been quite difficult, particularly for many of our many smaller builders, and we're really keen to support that. We're doing a lot of other stuff to do with place as well. We run a scheme called Homes for Nature, which is for members, and that's about saying, well, we've got swift bricks and hedgehog highways. And we're also doing a lot of work on embodied carbon, which I know is also of interest, but is not within the Future Home Standard. So that I think is probably about the full breadth of it. But it's very broad. It's growing, and you can see a lot more about that on our website, where you can see some of the guidance and support that we're doing in that space.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. That's really good. I suppose, like as an overall, then the Hubs brings together not only supply chain but developers, policymakers. How does it foster collaboration across such a broad supply chain? And also, why is it vital for achieving change at scale?
I think because we fill a hole in a way. We're not a lobby organisation, so we're the place where we try and bring everybody around the table to solve problems. That's really what we try to do: solve those problems and share that best practice that results out of that. So often we will help. We'll put some stuff into government about policy. And what we think policy might look like, and they will take that into account amongst lots of other things that people are saying to them. And then when consultations come out, we advise the industry about the consultations. We don't tend to take much of an opinion within a consultation. No. Interesting enough. So when consultations come out, we make sure that people are aware of that within the sector. And then when regulations come out, we then say, it might not just be regulations. So some of the stuff on planning and biodiversity is not regulatory. But we then give we help give advice on best practice on how to do that. We also set up groups as people work through those new issues for the first time. So we have communities of practice, so that people say, well, I'm working on this particular area. What's other people's experience of doing it? So we it's that sort of I suppose you might say, beginning to end,
Yeah.
help people through that entire journey.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And I know you've published a roadmap to 2027 and beyond as well.
Yes.
And that roadmap outlines a lot of things, but what does it tell us about the scale of transformation ahead for the UK house building?
Well, certainly colleagues within the industry say it's the biggest thing in living memory. That nobody can remember going through this much change this quickly, and so it's a very exciting time. I mean, I'm an engineer, so I love change. I mean, that's what you get as engineers, is what you get out of bed for in the morning. So it's about doing that change, making sure that we can do, it's something that allows new homes to actually have a marked differential over the existing stock, which I think is really exciting. But we've also got to make sure that they're good places to live in and that they really work for the residents.
Yeah. The hub also works through implementation groups on different aspects of the Future Home Standard, obviously, which now, for us, importantly, includes solar PV. How do these help turn policy into actual delivery, like practical delivery?
Well, we're at that stage where we're waiting for the Future Home Standard to actually be published, so we actually get into the detail. Solar PV is unusual in terms of the fact that we know it's definitely in there, although maybe some of the small print is yet to be properly defined. So the implementation groups they're still meeting, but they're really waiting for the consultation to come out. And so we can start to see what the solutions look like. So with PV, we know that there is a solution. We know that it's going to be on nearly every dwelling. But we've got other technologies which could be part of a solution, but we don't know whether they're going to be in the mix or not, because people haven't done all the sums yet. No. And those sums will be based on what's most cost effective, whether or not what they think will be, they're going to have confidence about passing consistently with, depending on the regulatory calculation method, whether or not that's good old SAP, which we've all known and loved for all these years, or whether it's going to be the new home energy model, which are going to be running in parallel. So that's another complication. Am I confident I'm going to pass in both? And then we've got this third factor coming in, which is going to be the most carbon efficient solution when we start counting the embodied carbon as well. And and I think that's quite a new way of thinking for many of us in the sector going forward. So it's a real, and I suppose actually, what's it like to live with? So you might have solutions which work brilliant technically, but actually it's not going to make it. It's not going to be the best for your customers or the residents. Yeah,
there's a huge learning curve moving forward, isn't there? And I think, like you say, the touch points will be what the client thinks, our homeowners, the people that are living in and dealing with it day in, day out.
Yeah, it's their pride and joy. I mean, it's if you're a homeowner, it's the biggest investment that you're ever going to make in your life, or at least for most people. And they don't want, and they need to be absolutely confident it's just going to be a dream to live in. If you bought the dream, it better be a dream when you turn up.
Yeah, correct. I suppose that's around some of the, we've seen some large scale testing. We touched on it with a previous podcast about, the true efficiencies of systems working together and collaboratively, what they give that homeowner as a benefit. It's going to be quite an interesting curve, I think, especially as it's landed now with the Future Home Standard.
Well, absolutely. And of course, we never know how people are going to live in their own homes.
No.
I mean, it's one of those things that I think it's always interesting if you ever go abroad and you go and visit somebody in their own home. That's the point when abroad feels the most abroad. Yeah. Because what people do, behind that front door varies, and that level of variation is, of course, you see it possibly more when you go abroad, but it's of course true across the entirety of the UK. Yeah. People just live in their homes in all sorts of different ways. Yeah. If people like a lot of ventilation, but you plan for that ventilation maybe to be delivered in other ways, then the way that house is going to operate is going to be different. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. There, do you like showers or do you like baths? And which is going to have a huge impact on your hot water load. So all of those things we've got to make sure that whatever we put out there is robust enough to cope with, what people are going to put those homes through and how they're going to live in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So how do organisations like ourselves at UPOWA, how would we support the Hub's mission and accelerate our sector's progress?
I think, first of all, it's about having good products, isn't it? Yeah. So it's good, tested products that we absolutely know are going to work. That product also needs to come with a wrapper for the home user. That means that product's really easy to use. Yes. I was once talking to somebody in the sector who said, who's really into all this stuff, and he said, I've got 7 apps that I run my house by, and of course, but if we're selling a house, we really wanted to have one app, don't we? One app to rule them all, one app to bind them. So that is really what we're looking for in terms of that. And then you've got the whole service and delivery to, of course, the builder themselves. Yeah. So that builder needs to know that, that they're going to get the support, the training, that the skills are available to install your products, and that when issues arise, and issues inevitably arise, there's somebody on the end of a telephone or by other means who can answer questions and get stuff sorted out for them. And particularly when they are venturing into an area which, with technology which they may not be massively familiar with, and they're going to need a lot of, a lot of hand-holding, I suspect. There is.
It's the unknown, isn't it? I think from our point of view as well, you look at our back house team is really important for the future. You're absolutely right. We've seen it in a lot of occasions where we've got, our product sectors. So we look at solar that we've got on a rooftop, we've got battery storage, and the most common thing is us being able to answer those questions quickly, to be able to give that homeowner peace of mind. But obviously it starts with the install. It starts with them being installed correctly. It follows a path. But ultimately we've got to make sure that I think any technology that's coming into this market has got that back house support as it flows through.
And one of the observations I make of clean tech companies, I don't think that they're always very good at explaining how much support they're actually going to give to the people who live in the homes. And loads of them are offering fantastic support, but they don't actually tell the sector how good they are. And I think that's a really important thing going forward, to make sure that everybody understands what the level of support there's going to be. Is there somebody who's going to pick up the phone who intimately understands the products and understands the fact that when you're asking the question as the homeowner, you haven't got any of the correct language to describe the problem.
Yeah, you should never expect a homeowner to have the technical ability. That's where, like I say, every product that you bring into the market, it's got to have that clear roadmap fully all the way behind it. And even from a traceability point of view, we know we've got some clients that want to know, where did this come from? How did this start? And where does it stem from? So I think collectively, you're right. There's a lot of clean tech companies coming in there into the market, and it's got to be quite rigid. And I suppose that's where you're supporting with what you're doing with webinars and et cetera, with about product set and also what the capabilities are with customers.
Well, yes, we've just done a webinar looking at the sales journey.
Yeah.
So what are the messages that we have to communicate about making sure that people are really grasp how that home is going to operate, how to get the best out of that home, and they've got to be in a position where they can answer all of the questions of these. I think I heard somebody referring to heat pump dads.
Right.
Okay. So strangely, I expected a more gender neutral expression to be used, but this new creature that has arrived who knows everything about how to get the most out of their heat pump and what the seasonal coefficient of performance is, and all of and can out geek you on every turn. I mean, and people need to be aware of that, particularly if the house is going to suddenly become a more technical thing. I think we're used to the idea. What do you sell houses? 3 things you sell houses on: location, location, location. But now it might be it's location, 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 and have I got solar on the roof? Correct. Have I got a battery? Have I got a heat pump? And how are those things working? And developers and also housing associations need to be able to know that they can answer those questions when they come in. And if they don't know where to answer them, where they get the answer, they can phone a friend and who that friend is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So right, Chris. So next theme, I've got understanding the future home standard and the 2027 solar mandate. So Why is the Future Homes Standard and now the solar mandate such a defining moment for sustainable house building in the UK?
Well, it's the moment where you're no longer going to be able to heat your home by gas. It's the moment when we say, let's stop setting fire to fossil fuels to heat our homes. And for those new homes, it feels to me personally, like we're just sort of shutting the door on the Victorian era of how we've always thought about how we ran our homes for heat and power, and we're opening up a new era. Yeah. We're opening up an era, really, I think, for which we can actually allow our homeowners to take back control, if I can pinch that expression, take back control, because they, at national level, we as we decarbonize the grid, we disconnect ourselves from the variations on global fossil fuel prices when it comes to heating in our homes and giving hot water out, and then in the home itself, if you're going to put what is now going to become the new normal for putting solar panels on the roof. Yeah. And you've then got a well-insulated home that's well made and you're running it with an electrical heat source, then suddenly you're in a position where you might not actually have to pay any household bills at all, particularly if you put a battery in.
Yeah, right.
And that bringing back control, power to the people, as it were, is something that's unique to the way that we can operate. The other thing that you're also looking at is a space in which you're saying, these technologies are going to have an impact on indoor air quality, on outdoor air quality, on all sorts of other things about the way that people experience these homes. And I mean, with regards to, giving that example of indoor air quality is that if you're not burning a fossil fuel, then that is one source of indoor pollutants that disappears. Yeah. If you're not putting in a gas hob, that's another place where it disappears. But if you're then making a very airtight dwelling as part of a fabric first approach, then you've got to make sure that you're really managing that well, managing the ventilation well. Yeah. Otherwise, you actually might have other sources of indoor air quality problems that might arise because you built the house in a way that is different from the way our Victorian forebears did.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And one key takeaway for me there, power to the people. I thought that was brilliant. I like that. I'll keep that one for...
I pinched that off somebody else.
Oh, did you? All right. I was going to give you the kudos.
I do want to apologise to them for doing that.
Okay. Well, it's a great slogan. So with around 9% of new homes now looking to receive solar from the Future Home Standard 2027, where do you see our key issues will be? What do you think it's going to be our problems? What's the biggest challenges that we're going to come up against, do you think?
Well, I think it's what I always say with all of these things is that none of the individual issues are difficult. The trouble is it's just doing them all at once at the same time. And then if you're a builder building several thousand houses, doing them all at once at the same time, several thousand times over is when it gets tricky. And particularly when it's new. There's a sense in which, a lot of people go, well, I know how to build a house. And now suddenly we say it's something different. And it's the combination of saying, well, we're going to start, going to see very large quantities of solar panels, but you're also going to see a very large quantity of new ways of heating homes. Yeah. Now, at the moment, I think everybody's tending to assume it's going to be individual air source heat pump monoblock units. Yeah. There, other ways are available, as I like to say, and it's about actually getting the heating right, getting the solar right, and then getting it right in combination. Suddenly makes everything. That's where there is that potential risk, and that's where we are at the Hub are really keen to give that support. Helping people to understand what the skills issues are across the piece, not just for the things that UPOWA installs,
of course,
but for everything, where we've got a whole range of change that's coming on, and we as a country have not been very good at encouraging people into thinking that being in construction or construction related trades has been not always been promoted as a fantastic career choice.
Correct, yeah.
Although interestingly, I think in the last few months, when I think it was all started possibly when a real expert in AI was asked, they said, what's the one career that you could recommend for people that would be AI proof? And they said plumber.
Yeah.
And I think everybody thought they were going to say something else. And so I think people are waking up to the fact that I think we're going to start to see more young people wanting to come into the sector in the broader sense. But that doesn't mean that we haven't got an immediate set of problems now. We're coping with the number of people that we need.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I think from a UPOWA point of view, we're seeing Future Home Standards 2027. We've got to start taking effect of that now. We've got to be really future-proofing everything that we've got. That doesn't just come down to supply chain, but also skills and ability. I think the one thing that I'm getting a common theme from the podcast that we're doing at the moment is visibility has been key and is key for what this mandate's going to mean. And I mean that across the sector. You're right, because a lot of the collaboration pieces, they all work together. So we're not siloed, because we all deliver this house and this property that somebody's going to live in together, with a lot of mass trades and work around the build aspect of that. But I think the one thing that we're going to have to really lean in on, and collectively this is where we've got to talk to government, is that without knowing what's going to happen, what incentive schemes are going to kick in, because we're already going to see a mass upload in our installs on site because of what we're seeing with Future Home Standards, with let's say 100% of roofs being solar mandated. And then if we get a market shift as well, where we've got new incentive schemes to come out, like Help to Buy, or the scrapping of stamp duty, those things are also going to take effect. So you're actually doubling what's going to be there. I suppose visibility for everybody is key. And what's your thought on that with how can we push that with a little bit harder with government and also our smaller SMEs and national house builders?
I think, yes, it's a question of visibility and a question of forecasting. So even with great visibility, you do a forecast. The only thing you know about forecasts is a forecast is wrong.
And it can move tomorrow. Yeah.
And it'll move tomorrow. Yeah. So and that doesn't matter what sector you're in. Yeah. That's just a truism about forecasting. Absolutely. What the sector is looking to government to maximise the certainty that's available. And I think we're all aware that the government's doing an awful lot of work thinking about the planning system, because that's the first thing about uncertainty. Correct. We know that it can be very difficult to get planning permissions, and certainly for smaller developers, that can really be, that can be an existential crisis for them. And if we want them to be able to survive and flourish, then there's a lot of work that I think we can be doing as a sector to help educate all of us, both educate those in the sector about planning and educate planners more about what's going on in the sector. One of the things that's going to be interesting for planners going forward is that we've now got, it looks like we're going to have a lot of solar panels on roofs, for example, but there are different roof designs and formats which would maximise the amount of solar that goes on the roof, or cut it back, and that will be within the gift of both developers and planners in their negotiations for doing that. It was whether or not planners are fully au fait with the fact that if you put a hip roof on, or you put a dormer window on, the amount of space for your solar panels has dropped off. So first thing is about planning, I think, and trying to sort that out. And then it's about, I think, in the for sale market, it's about how does government try and input as much stability into that marketplace as possible. And bearing in mind, a lot of that is outside of their control. It's just within the vagaries of the cycle of the economic cycle. So I think it's about having that stability, and then I think it's also about how we see support for housing associations and the rental and the private rental sector going forward. Because if we're going to see a big uplift in the number of homes being built, that's where we would expect that to be. And of course, we're very aware that they've got a lot of other issues they can spend their money on in terms of managing the existing stock. And that building new stuff is going to, drops down the list when you're concerned about making sure that your existing stock is 100% up to scratch and you're doing all the right things by your tenants in those cases. Yeah. So I think if we can get to that point, we can start to get some stability in.
Yeah.
The thing then that happens though is that as builders, we've got to be a lot better at talking to the supply chain about what's coming up.
Yeah.
So I'm very aware that a lot of builders know how many homes they're going to be building, but they're not actually 100% certain about all the features that are on them. And so making sure that is communicated into companies such as yourselves is really, really important, because you're not just sort of, we can't expect the supply chain just to be sort of sitting there waiting for, like a bunch of Spitfire pilots in the Battle of Britain, waiting for the bell to ring, and we're on our way to go and deliver those solar panels and those EV chargers, and at the drop of a hat. As much as you want to do excellent customer service, that is, not, we can't, as customers, the sector can't expect that. And I think also it's about smaller developers thinking about whether or not they want to go early to make sure that they are known by you. And that they have relationships with companies such as yourself and with, heat pump companies and all of these other people. Yeah. And then that needs to be a mutual thing. It needs to be also that those smaller companies know that they're going to get the help and the support going forward, even when the big companies are suddenly coming in and wanting to gobble up all of the supply.
That's the thing, yeah. And I think from our point of view, the one thing we can do is we've got to scale around what the future looks like. We've got to be able to sort of invest in that early, because you're absolutely right. UPOWA, we've got a very good brand. We do really well now with what we've got. We've built it at the rate of what we've seen of, we have had some serious growth last year anyway with what we've been doing here at UPOWA, but we've been trying to land and implement labour at the right point so that we can actually meet it, but also have training behind that and ensure that we're delivering correct. The key thing for me at UPOWA as well is that we deliver consistently. The one thing that I want, if there's a UPOWA system that's installed down in Exeter, if I'm doing one in Manchester, I want it identical. It's exactly the same. It meets the same standards. And the way that we'll do that is making sure that our staff are trained to the correct ways of working process. And that's one thing that we've got to invest in. And it means I think there is going to be a lot of investment from some of your supply chain partners and, in that route, it's kind of a bit of a risk for us. But again, visibility is key. Forecasting will be a huge help to us. But I suppose collectively, as we're coming together and we're joining you within some of the webinars that we're talking through, hopefully we'll get some good feedback and that will help us.
Yes, yeah. Not wanting to teach you guys to suck eggs. It's about having simple processes that everybody understands that they can deliver consistently. Because increases in volume when you are doing a lot of work on and building size is a very vulnerable stage for a lot of people, because it's how do you bring in all of this, new people who are not familiar with that stuff, and how do you bring them up to scratch? And that's always a challenge. I mean, I think it's potentially a bigger challenge on heating systems than it is for say PV, because you do need to know more stuff if you are putting in a heating system than if you're or a new type of heating system than if you're putting on solar panels. And so from that point of view, you have some isolation from some of that, but it doesn't mean that that's not going to be a huge problem, potentially, if we're not able to get that visibility and get those forecasts through to you.
Exactly. Thank you, Chris. So moving from targets to practical implementation. So we've kind of touched on it a little bit with what we just spoke about, but scaling net zero delivery from policy ambition to real world implementation is a huge challenge. What do you see as the biggest barriers? Is it costs? Is it skills? Is it supply chain capacity?
I think we mustn't underestimate cost as being an issue. Developers have been buying land to build on in the second half of this decade for some time, and they've had to make a whole bunch of assumptions about what's going to be in those homes. Now, one of the assumptions that they probably didn't make was this idea that we're going to max out on the solar panels on the roof.
Yeah.
That wasn't there.
Yeah.
And and I'm very aware that the market is, a lot of people find the market quite sluggish at the moment.
Yeah.
And so cost is going to be very, very sensitive to some of our people going forward, because they haven't been able to factor that in or give it proper consideration potentially when they've been doing land pricing.
Yeah.
So I think so cost is an important one. I think the other issues are about developing, what will be the solutions. So we know that large quantities of PV are going to be certain on nearly every house, but with all the other tech, we don't necessarily know not what the combinations are or what the solutions are, because the regulations are written in such a way that you've got a variety of means by which you can get to the end goals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I suppose, like we've touched again, like I say, we've scaled up in a way where we're ready for the future. We're at the best that we know. We're ready for the future, through, obviously, I say it again, we're a golden thread. We come all the way through from design all the way to install and aftercare. So we've got the full train that comes through the business. We talked about the collaboration. How important do you think that is between house builders, policymakers and innovators, and the likes of ourselves? How can we get that tighter, and how can we work closer together?
Well, it is very important. I think the thing is that, but it's important we all understand what we're trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
So for policymakers, it's about policy delivery. So what they want to see is, a low carbon economy that husbands our scarce resources really well.
Yeah.
And house building is a huge consumer of resources, so it's really important to get that right.
Yeah.
So I think we've got to recognise where policymakers are coming from and what's important to them.
Yeah.
And that's what makes our business so interesting, is because that policy making also extends into planning. So every time we build a house, there's a policy maker who's got some skin in the game.
Yeah.
One who's saying, look, these are the things I need you to bear in mind for me. I think for developers, it's the key for them is being able to find good and simple in an absolute right way. I think to make things really simple takes a lot of thought, because the world is complicated, and how we find simple solutions to complicated problems and not simplistic solutions to complicated problems is really critical. So we need to find good, simple solutions, paying back a bit on what we were talking about earlier, about making sure that we've got that allows them to have processes which run from their design offices all the way through down to implementation on site, that says this is how we solve these problems. This is how we make sure that we've got people, that we are delivering stuff for our consumers, and then the home's got to be simple to live in. The thing is, I always talk about I used to have an Auntie Queenie, and I always like to run the Auntie Queenie test. It says, could Auntie Queenie live in this house? Or do they, or would Auntie Queenie have needed a degree in physics before they, possibly from Cambridge, before they could operate this? Is this going to be a simple, pleasant, great place to live? And that cooperation must always lead to that solution, because for engineers like me, it's very easy to fall into, I've got a technical problem, how do we solve it? And then we forget that Auntie Queen's going to live in it at the end.
Correct. Yeah. Very good. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And so the next theme for us, we've got ensuring homes perform as designed. So meeting the regulations is one thing. We know that. But ensuring homes perform as designed is another. So this true as built. Okay. So how do we make sure the homes we build deliver on their promised performance for homeowners, but then communities and the wider grid are quite important into that as well? So how do we collect that How do we
Okay,
do that?
became suddenly a really big question. I was gathering my thoughts for the first half, and then you threw in the bit at the end. So I might fail to answer all of the questions.
That's
because
fine.
I'll forget what it all was. I think the thing is about how homes perform is that there are two things that really are the touchstone for how it performs.
Yeah.
You've got building performance evaluation, i.e., how does the home perform before we put the human beings in it?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work going on in that space.
Yeah.
So we are seeing new ways of testing homes, which are improving and getting more reliable all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that becomes an interesting space when we start feeding that back into the loop of how we're building.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of that work being supported by particularly Salford University's Eco House 2, where you can actually build a house and you can absolutely you can literally make the weather. At Salford, which is a good job because normally outside it's raining, but inside it can be anything you like, and so we can really judge how how the house is operating in a completely controlled environment. And of course that's historically been the problem, because it's like, well, how's the house operating? Well, I built it in Inverness, or I built it in Norwich, or I built it in Plymouth. And the reality is in all of those places, it's operated, the same house is going to operate completely differently because the background changes. So I think getting better at that, getting that feedback in, getting that as part of a proper loop is going to be a really interesting space. And the Hub's going to be doing a lot more work in that, in that space than we've been wanting to do a lot more work. And I know that is gathering speed. I think that then the second thing is about building, evaluation once people are in, post-occupancy evaluation. And that's going to become really and that is interesting again, because we're seeing lots of new tech that's coming into the marketplace, where we can start using sensors that were already going to be installed into the house to start saying, well, how is that house performing? Not only in terms of energy usage, but what's the relative humidity like? Is it overheating? Is it doing all of these other things? And then feeding that back in live. Now, if you are somebody who owns the home and is renting it out, that becomes really, really valuable data, because it helps you make sure that your tenants are happy. But also, if you're owning your own home, again, it becomes very useful for you to be able to start making judgment calls. You've got that lived experience of living in the house and thinking, "Oh, it's a bit hot in here today," but you've actually got some real data to support that, and stuff that you can help that helps people make those judgment calls. Of course, builders need to be aware that increasingly people can buy those sensors for themselves, and will be actually feeding back to builders and saying, look, this is my experience of living in your home, or in the home that you built for us and is now our home. You're telling me it was So I think all of that's going to be that is a very, very interesting space, with the sensors getting better all the time, with the data collection becoming more sophisticated, and with that feeding back into ever more sophisticated apps, which will be controlling your heating and could be controlling your ventilation as well.
We know that there's a growing emphasis on the whole house performance, so this will bring this back into what we want to get to as well. So integrating building fabric, heating, solar, battery and EV, etc., so that they work together efficiently. How is that being adopted across the industry?
I think that one of the things that's interesting is that we've been used to being a gas boiler installing sector, and gas boilers are always specified for the existing homes market.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we always put in a gas boiler that was actually bigger than was needed for the fabrics that we were building. And so suddenly the fabric becomes intimately tied in with electrical heating systems, almost regardless of what form of electrical heating system they are. And therefore knowing that that's going to really work and really perform it becomes, and knowing those tie-ins is going to be really important.
Yeah.
Again, I think linking that into post-occupancy evaluation and the sensors that you might be installing anyway is also going to be a critical way of getting that feedback to make sure everything is working as you intended.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is going to be interesting is that we've spent an awful lot of time thinking about space heating.
Yeah.
We've not always thought as much about hot water. And so we've got hot water demand is going to become a big driver in these homes. And there's a lot of interesting green tech in that space, whether or not that's smart hot water cylinders or wastewater heat recovery or very interesting low flow showers that are not like the old flow showers of the past.
Yeah.
So you end up with a hot water system, a subsystem within the space next door to a space heating subsystem, which is in a home, which is a subsystem, which has also got a whole load of plug-in loads.
Yeah.
And what are those plug-in loads going to look like? And of course, with the big plug-in load being the EV. So and being able to predict that and know that as time goes forward, because I'm absolutely convinced that we are going to move over to all of us driving electric vehicles at some stage or other, because once people buy an electric vehicle, very few people want to go back.
Correct. No, and I agree. And also being an EV driver myself, we've also seen now the adoption of EV charging coming across a wider sector as well. A lot of the initial infrastructure as well was very weak, and if you look at EV vehicles as a whole, the infrastructure is getting stronger. There's actually no reason to go back to a diesel or a hybrid or we can keep with a hybrid, but actually the EV area is getting a lot more competent, and I think that's going to drive the homeowners anyway.
But there's a lot of convenience there, isn't there? Because it's very difficult to fill up your petrol car at home.
It is.
You just need an awful lot of jerry cans.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that convenience is something that's really going to people are just going to go, well, why would you do it any other way?
Yeah, I think you're right. But again, it's that adoption, isn't it? And everything like in that way is moving forward. We're on about even when we touched on it earlier about creating an industry which is now attractive to people leaving school, college, university to actually get to that. Actually, this EV and this clean tech is actually going to drive that for us as well, which hopefully then gives us an opportunity to embrace a lot of the levers of school and put them through into this industry that's got a growing cycle.
Yes, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how we see the development of electric vehicles potentially become part of the system of living at home.
Correct. Yeah.
Because what you've got in an electric vehicle is a very, very large battery, much larger than most of the batteries that we install in people's homes. Yeah. And whether or not that starts to be seen as part of the battery solutions going forward instead of a battery actually that's in the house. But that's really complicated, because as a house builder, I don't know whether or not you're going to have an electric vehicle or not.
Yeah. But again, if the opportunity is there to be able, if you do have an EV, as power your house from that car vehicle, there's a great opportunity there. So we've seen this firsthand, especially on zero bills projects with Octopus Energy, and that combining solar, batteries, heat pumps, and also the smart controls to guarantee that performance. And free energy for residents. So that's another model. We're seeing that come in quite heavily. Everything's going to evolve, and when these schemes come up, it really does give that homeowner that buy-in. So from your point of view, Chris, how can clean tech integration improve consistency and the customer experience, making homes smarter and simpler to run and more predictable on energy use and bills?
Well, you were talking about that option for having no bills for your electricity, and I think, of course, you never had that choice before. That was never on the cards, because you were nearly always powering your house on gas, and so that is an immediate consistency potential for people using their homes. Of course, there are always limitations, and the small print's quite good at making sure that you have to live in the house to a certain extent within that which was predicted, in order to be able to avail yourself of all of those benefits. But that consistency is, I think, really valuable. I mean, and I think in terms of improving that customer experience, I mean, I think I'm very committed to, lowering our carbon footprint. I mean, I really want to see that. That's really, really important. I come all the way here today from Suffolk by train. Doing something about carbon footprint is something that's important to me personally, and of course, it's really important to the hub and to the sector. But for our customers, saying you're saving the planet it's a bit vague. You build it. You got this house and it's only this much carbon. Well, actually, it's not this much carbon. It's this much carbon dioxide equivalent. Yeah. What does 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent look like? Yeah. Nobody knows what that. Nobody has a feel for that. But if you can suddenly say, oh, and by the way, you're not going to be paying anything on your electricity bill, that becomes something that's really, really tangible. Yeah. Now the hub's not, the hub is agnostic about whether or not builders offer that sort of offering to customers, or whether or not that's offered to tenants, because there are tenant versions of that. And I think that's something for the market to play out with, and for people to see whether or not they are, whether that is a benefit that the people living in homes are really going to appreciate. Yeah. I would have thought they would, but that's for them to make the judgment, not for me to make the judgment. Yeah. So I think making this stuff tangible, particularly around costs, and I think also and around other aspects about is my house we expect on really hot days that people's homes are going to be warm, and maybe more warm than they'd like them to be, but is the general experience that actually that is only really reserved for really hot days? Yeah. Is people's general experience that they are enjoying the experience of living in those houses? Are they, do they have great daylighting? Yeah. Which is competition, of course. Great daylighting in winter may mean overheating in the summer. Yeah. So you've got to be, but not necessarily, because you can be clever about it. But so, is the indoor air quality great? Are these great spaces? Have I got have I still got places to hang up all my clothes, or is it being filled with tech? Yeah. I open this cupboard and it's great. I can't fit anything in because there's something else in there. Yeah. So I think that is where customers and tenants are going to really feel the benefit of a sort of tied-in journey, and about what we called about consistency. But I guess it's also about the way in which we delight people with homes. Exactly. Do people just go, wow, I just want one of those? And particularly if they're buying their own. Yeah. And I think that's where we can come together, where we're using the technologies to give people that this is just a great place to live. Yeah. And feeling that sense that I'm really happy that I just made a great decision here.
And relying on true comfort. Yeah.
Yeah, true comfort. Yeah. And comfort in that widest experience of what we mean comfortable to be. Yeah.
So we touched on embodied carbon. And tackling embodied and operational carbon together. So from that point of view, why is embodied and whole life carbon becoming such a key focus for the housing sector?
Well, the thing about a Future Home Standard is that they're zero carbon ready for, and by that we're talking about for regulated use in the home. That's the heating, the hot water, the fans, all those sorts of things. Yeah. And they're zero carbon ready in the sense that as the grid decarbonises, they all become zero carbon. Now, with the mandate to put lots of solar panels on the roof, that actually they're going to get to that zero carbon very quickly. Yeah. And many of them may actually find that they're already in that zero carbon world as of the moment they are built. When you start doing all of that, then you go, where's the other carbon that the sector's responsible for? And that, of course, then ends up being the embodied carbon, the carbon that we use to build build the homes, and we recognise that that's really important, and government recognises it's really important as work and wanting to work with the sector and work with the hub to try and get the sector into measuring it and understanding it and doing something about it. And so we've developed a tool for our members, which is a free to use tool for members, house builder members, where they can actually go in and take their designs and see where they are in that embodied carbon space. And then that allows them to make informed decisions about where they're going to go in future in terms of specifications and designs. It also is a means by which our suppliers are also feeding into those tools all the new data that they are picking up as the supply chain also seeks to drive down their embodied carbon. So I the other day I was at one of our member companies looking at it was H+H, looking at how they're making aircrete blocks, and they've got planned to halve their embodied carbon by the end of the decade. It's not very far away at the end of the decade. And then they've got a plan to go beyond that. And I was also talking to a concrete block manufacturer called Plasmor, and we were seeing all the work that they are doing, the fact that they own a train and all of their blocks get delivered from South Yorkshire into London every day. So you've got a low embodied carbon block there. And then we've got all the people who are doing an awful lot of work with biogenics, which is a fancy name for talking about timber and hemp and all of those sorts of things, where you're growing stuff and absorbing carbon out of the atmosphere. So we know all that stuff's happening, and we're able to feed that into the models again. So because it's not just about the decisions that the house builders are making, it's the decisions about the material, being made by the material suppliers that's changing all the time in a rapidly decarbonising world.
And that leads really well into, so obviously with build methods, they're changing. And obviously I'm always going to build methods up because of MMC, but obviously MMC, timber frame, advanced masonry, help cut embodied carbon while improving delivery outcomes. What else does MMC provide?
Well, at the hub we're agnostic about build methods, and I'm always tempted to ask what people mean by MMC. So if we mean timber frame, which I think most timber framers would go, I didn't know I was building MMC.
Modern. Exactly.
Because we've been doing this for quite a while now.
Exactly.
I think we will see new methods of building coming onto the marketplace all the time, and they potentially, because they're thinking about environmental stuff, may deliver improved performance in terms of embodied carbon or even carbon in use, potentially by different fabrics and different approaches to fabrics, both in U values and thermal bridging. But that is all in the mix, and whether or not those come to market is important. It's impossible for me to say, because I don't know what everybody's doing. We also know that all the existing players, whether timber frame players or masonry players, are doing an awful lot. I mean, a massive amount of work in this sort of space to drive down their carbon. I mean, and we know that, and that's often by installing renewables on their sites.
Yeah, of course, it works in hand in hand.
And also, this doesn't happen. We're not in. The UK is not in a complete and utter bubble. I mean, I think everybody thinks that the UK is the only place that's decarbonising its grid, isn't it? But we saw figures. I think was it this month where the first time that that we were seeing, masses of growth of renewables, and actually investment in fossil fuel electricity production declining. So, or at least declining as a proportion of the mix. And so, everywhere we are seeing those changes. But the thing is that it's very hard to predict in which which building products are going to decarbonize necessarily the fastest.
Yeah.
If you're a builder, and that's again a place where at the hub, by helping people to think about embodied carbon calculations, we can start to help to inform them, and they get a future picture of where that carbon story is going.
Yeah, no, it's great, and obviously holistically and collectively, the use of a very low carbon product used with clean tech is a very good solution. So I suppose overall, there's a full delivery of that.
Yes, it is. I mean, and part of it, but the maths is really complicated.
Yeah,
because the temptation is to say, well, I can trade off carbon in use versus embodied carbon to give me a whole life carbon figure that works really well.
Yeah.
But I think there are dangers in that, because are we really confident about the data that we've got?
Yeah.
Because frequently the data will be out of date because people are changing and moving so fast, and they need to go get a new product declaration done, and that new product declaration will be based on a historic number.
Correct.
Yeah. So often we can find ourselves, we think we're adding up to lots of carbon to make one carbon figure, but we've got to be really wary of adding apples and pears together. And I certainly know a lot of my colleagues are really nervous about doing that trade-off, and whether that trade-off is really valid and really there. I also have colleagues who are saying absolutely we should be doing the trade-off, and that's a really interesting space to be working in. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that certainly a lot of clean tech businesses might say, well, actually, let clean tech do more of the heavy lifting and the fabric do less of the heavy lifting, because the clean tech, we know that everything is decarbonised. We know the rate of decarbonisation on the clean tech and the rate of decarbonisation of the UK grid. Yeah. But a lot of fabric people will be going, yes, but if you want to make sure you've got a really consistent house and you've got a house that's actually, that's going to continue to deliver for its entire performance, the fabric's going to be there for the entire life of the house, whereas the clean tech will have to be renewed and replaced. So it's a complicated world, and I suppose I'm trying to give you a bit of a diplomatic answer there. I think that debate is hot and will continue to be so for quite a while, whilst we get ourselves into the embodied carbon mindset.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so we've covered a lot. This could be a really short topic or quite a long one, but the vision for 2030 and the collaboration ahead. So if we fast forward now to 2030, what does a successful new home community look like to you?
I think it's going to be a place I want to live in. Yeah. And it's going to be better than the place I live in already. I think it's going to be, I think we can be cautiously optimistic about being something where those people who live in those homes have real ownership of those homes, have real control over those homes, that we've allowed them to take back control, that we've given them the power to live in those homes in the way that they want to live in them. It's going to be a place that is a great place to live. It's going to be aesthetically pleasing. It's going to have great transport links. Yeah. It's going to be a place where you see nature, that you are living in nature, with nature, that you are going to have green spaces, that you are going to have places where you're going to see wildlife, where we've integrated our water solutions for both our drainage and our biodiversity and for our drought mitigation to give you just places that you want to love. Yeah. And I think that's what we've got to aim. We've got to remember that we're dream makers. People, particularly, people buying homes, particularly if they're buying them for their own private purchase, they're buying a dream, and we've got to find those ways to deliver it.
Yeah, amazing, great answer. How's the future Homes Hub helping the sector align and collaborate to make that vision a reality? Then,
I think we've got it's looking at the full breadth. Yeah. So, today here at UPOWA, we've been thinking a lot about energy. Yeah. and power. I mean, it comes with the title. The clues in the hint. Yeah, the clues in the title.
Power to the
UPOWA and power to the people. And but it is that it's that full breadth and delivering homes is becoming more complicated. Yeah. A friend of mine, I'm going to nick another expression that somebody used. A friend of mine said that back in the day, when it came to building houses, all you needed to know was the pointy bit went to the top. Yeah. And now suddenly you've got to be a building physicist, you've got to be an ecologist, you've got to be, you've got to be a structural engineer, you've got to be all of those things. And particularly if you're a small builder, you've almost personally got to be all of those things, or at least know who to call. Yeah. And so the hub exists to help you integrate all of that stuff. Yeah. I think one of the things I often say is that very few of the decisions that you have to make about a home are actually complicated. The trouble is making them all at once.
Yes, correct.
So you have to make a million decisions all at once, and sometimes the way that we're trying to build homes is that the space for making a good decision is decreasing. You've got to be able to hit this hot spot in the middle, or sweet spot, should I say, in the middle, that allows you to say, well, I've designed a house with great day lighting that doesn't overheat in the summer. Yeah. That I've designed a house with a great but that overheating meant that I didn't actually get the benefit of the heating when I was doing the calculations for the energy performance. So I've tied that in with the energy performance, and the energy performance of the home is still working well. And then when I do all of that, I've got a home that's well ventilated, that's working well, because I've gone and made it all so much more airtight, and I can't rely on it just leaking like an old house. Yeah, right. So all of these things start to impinge on the space for that sweet spot, and sometimes that sweet spot can be quite small, and we've got to make sure that we're hitting it time and time again. Yeah.
And I think from a UPOWA point of view as well, being on the Future Homes Hub and being a part of that with you, we're looking, and our key messages is that we're sustainable, we're affordable, but ultimately we're future ready, because we know we've got a lot of scaling up to do. But delivering that as part of you is probably a key message that comes into the whole envelope of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and one of the things that the hub does is recognizing that the expertise lies in the sector as a whole. Correct. So we've got house builders who know stuff, and some house builders who know a lot of stuff and want to and are ready to share that best practice with other people to make sure that we get good results, that we get good implementation of this stuff. We've got people in the supply chain, such as yourselves, who really know your stuff. Yeah. And we need to make sure that we know as a sector those bits of the things that that are going to make sure that we do that good delivery. Yeah. And then we have consultants in the sector who really do know their stuff. Often actually really specialist consultants, often people who are consultants to other consultants. And we need to make sure that stuff also gets fed into the mix to make sure we get those good outcomes. Yeah. And we've talked a little bit about the hub in terms of, we bring those people around the table to solve those problems. But then we've got this big dissemination piece. So we disseminate through webinars. So we have two types. We have deep dives where we look at an issue in great detail, and that's about delivering a lot of information. But we also do lunch and learns, which are about something you might watch while having a sandwich, and those have that, and they're much more dialogue. We're taking more questions in those and trying to do that. We have communities of practice where people are meeting together to say, well, we're doing this now. We're trying to follow the guidance. We're trying to do all of the things that we've been told are best practice, but we're still wanting to know, well, what are other people doing? What's the optimum solution look like? And then we have site visits where we go off and we see things. So we see things on building sites, we see some stuff at manufacturers, we see stuff at suppliers, where people are able to gather all of those new ideas. And then of course we have conferences. So we have our big Future Homes conference, where we're trying to bring everybody together, suddenly face to face, suddenly 450, 500 people all in the same room, thinking about those issues, doing a bit of that future casting, seeing where we're going and making sure that we're staying on track.
Finally, Chris, is my last question. Right. So if you could give one message to the house builders and the supply chain prepping for the future homes standard, what would it be and why?
Yeah, that's huge, isn't it? Yeah. What would be the one message? Can I go for two messages?
Go for two, yeah. Okay. You do what's right.
Yeah, okay. I think the first thing is don't forget the people who are going to live in the home.
Yeah.
And I say that as an engineer. So so apologies to everybody out there if you knew you weren't going to forget them, but I know that sometimes I do. It's possible to get overexcited with a technical solution and forget that folk have to live in them. So I think it's about saying, first and foremost, how do we make something that people are just going to love living in? Yeah. And then I think the other thing that I would say is that in terms of love your supply chain. I think if you're a small builder, I would be saying think about going early.
Yeah.
Make sure that you've got a foot in the door with all of these things, so that if there's an avalanche of demand, the suppliers already know who you are.
Yeah.
And then I think with the larger ones, the larger builders, I think the big thing is love your supply chain. Make sure they know that they've got a forecast. We all know that forecasts are wrong, but a forecast is better than no forecast. Make sure they know what you know, and then we stand a much better chance of making sure that we deliver, good property home, good quality homes on time, and that meet the needs of all those who are living in them.
Well done. Thank you very much, Chris. That's been really insightful. Really appreciate you joining us on the podcast.
Thank you.
And I look forward to the release of it. Brilliant. Thank you for watching and listening. This has been Shaping a Greener Tomorrow, brought to you by UPOWA. Subscribe now to Shaping a Greener Tomorrow on your favourite podcast platform. Tune in and join the conversation as we inspire change to help shape a more sustainable future for the built environment.